Hours passed. HOA members came and went, trying to negotiate, offering bribes. One even offered free landscaping for my cabin, but I stayed firm. I had no interest in hurting anyone. I just wanted them to understand boundaries, and maybe teach them a lesson in humility. By late afternoon, the tension reached its peak. Bradford finally stumped over, red-faced, holding a stack of papers. We didn't know," he stammered. "We thought the gate closure would pressure you, but we didn't realize it cut us off completely." I nodded. "That's why respect matters. You don't get to control what isn't yours." After hours of negotiation, the HOA finally agreed to reopen my gate and drop all claims against me. They even signed a formal acknowledgement stating I had legal rights to the road access across my property. It wasn't just a victory for me, it was a reminder that arrogance never pays. As I drove back to my cabin that evening, the sun dipping behind the trees, I felt a quiet satisfaction. My gate was open, my cabin safe, and the HOA. Well, they had learned a lesson about Overreach. Later that week, neighbors whispered about the incident. Some called me a hero, others called me a genius. Either way, the story of the cabin gate showdown spread fast. And I couldn't help but chuckle at the irony. The HOA that thought it could trap me ended up trapped in their own mistake. I had always loved my little cabin at the edge of the forest. It wasn't much, just a few wooden walls, a stone fireplace, and a small garden, but it was mine. That peace, however, didn't sit well with my HOA. One chilly morning, I drove up to my cabin and froze. My gate, the one that led to the road, was sealed shut with a massive chain and padlock. A bright orange notice from the HOA flap in the wind. Property violation, immediate gate closure. Access denied until compliance is met. Key. I stared at it, disbelief mixing with amusement. Compliance. My cabin was exactly as it had been for years. I dialed the HOA president, a man named Bradford, and his voice dripped with authority over the phone. "You need to follow HOA regulations. The gate is sealed for your safety," he said smugly. I laughed. "Safety? You mean inconvenience? Besides, this is my property." Bradford didn't answer. He just hung up. I stepped back and looked around, thinking. That's when I realized something the HOA had completely overlooked. The only road they used to access their house ran straight through my land. Their neighborhood wasn't connected to any other public road. Without my property, they had no exit. I decided to pay them a visit. Not to yell, not to threaten, just to remind them who held the upper hand. I drove my truck along the dirt path cutting through the back of my property. By the time I reached their community, the HOA board members were outside, pacing nervously. "Oh hi," Bradford said, trying to hide his panic. How did you get here?" I leaned against my truck, smiling. "You forgot something, Brad. The only way out of your neighborhood? Right through my land." Faces went pale. Phones came out. They were calling someone, maybe a lawyer, maybe the police. But I had already anticipated that. I wasn't about to do anything illegal. I simply parked my truck across the main access road that went through my property. "Looks like you're stuck," I said calmly.